Hey everybody, welcome to this edition of the UGASports Live. I am your host, Radi Nabulsi. I am joined by Dayne Young and the Hall of Famer himself, Jim Donnan, former head coach of the University of Georgia Bulldogs, and the reason everybody is tuning in. We say that every week because it is very, very true. We appreciate you joining us. The Dogs are now 6-0, bowl eligible. Luckily, they achieved that benchmark. We have a lot to talk about from last weekend, going into a huge game with Kentucky. And it's not a basketball game. This is a really big game with Kentucky. We're going to talk about that. We will answer your questions. We just have a few things we want to do when we start the show. We want to thank our friends here at Classic City Eats, where I am parked my big butt over here to eat some food and check out the decorations and enjoy the atmosphere here. I want to thank our friends at Academia Brewing Company for also sponsoring the show. Athens Ford, who sponsors our show and our watch-along. Our friends at Dead Soxy. They're one of our newest sponsors and great friends of ours. And, of course, our friends over at Europie. So shout out to all of our sponsors who sponsor the show, and we hope you will be a patron of them as well. And I will kind of jump right into it, Coach. We had a question from UJ Alum 95, and I normally I kind of just get your overall thoughts on the Auburn game or the previous week's game before we start looking ahead. But I thought UJ Alum 95 brought up a good question, and he asked, what did the Auburn game teach us about Georgia's defense? Is there anything that you can take away from that? And what else did we learn from this past game?
Well, one of the things that happened in the game is Chris Smith got hurt, our safety. And when you get an injury to a kind of quarterback back there, it makes it a little bit different. But Jackson came in and did a good job. And, without question, we missed Smith, and we're probably going to miss him this week. I hope he can come back. But anytime you get your shoulder dislocated or come out and then they put it back in, it's a very painful deal, particularly as a defensive back. But as far as weaknesses, we don't have anything that is just an outlying, weakness that somebody can go down after down. But we have some personnel that have some limited skill levels that aren't as good as some of the others we got. And, Brady's a really good defensive back. I mean, he's come on and played well. He's a good tackler. He's a very good knowledgeable how to play the star position. But there's no question that Mike Bobo, part of his game plan was based on our personnel, which is really good. Out of the people that he's going to attack, he went after Brady. I think 7 or 8 times he threw the ball in his area and completed 7 passes out of 8. So nothing that really hurt us that bad. But the one play that he made on the goal line was humongous when he knocked the ball down. And regardless of whether Bo Nix thinks it's interference or not, it wasn't a call. So I think answering his question is, we aren't an outstanding secondary yet. We've improved so much from the first of the year. We played good with everybody else around us, with our front, with the rush we got, and we're gonna have balls completed against us. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, you got skill level of these guys, and fortunately, we talked about it on the Watch Along show. One of the things that really helped us the other day was the drops. I mean, just because you call a pass, there's 3 things can happen to it. You got to protect, you got to throw it, you got to catch it. And they dropped some, and that helped us a little bit to keep drives from continuing. But I would just say we don't have any major weaknesses on our defense at all. It's just that we're not as good in the secondary as we are up front. That's a given there. Offensively, I thought we showed, even though we're down to our 6th, 7th, and 8th receivers as far as depth, these guys stepped up. McConkey had a great game. Mitchell did a good job. And those guys stepped in there and did what we needed to. So even though we're lacking our star performers, Pickens, Burton, all those guys, it was Rosemary, these guys are going to hopefully get back, but they're going to have a hard time getting in there as long as these guys are continuing to play like that. So it was a great road win in front of a really loud crowd, and just continuing the complete ass whipping of Auburn, 11-3 out of the last 14. I mean, we were 2-3 when I was here, and really should have won another one. But That's just a dominant against one of your major, among the major people that we need to beat. We're 11-3 in the last 14. That's unreal.
That is a curb stomping. That's just the numbers boggle the mind. I think there's Georgia's 16 of 21 too. When again, those are always a little bit of cherry picking because why did you go 21 and not 22 and stuff like that? But no, that has been an absolute utter ownage. And if you go read the Auburn boards, go read the Auburn message boards. You can tell it's frustrating. They're starting to hate Georgia more than Alabama. It's because they feel that they should be able to win more of those games. So it's fun to watch. Dayne, I want to get your take on this. Looking back at the game, Ladd McConkey named SEC Freshman of the Week, which well deserved, well earned. Guy had a great game. But if you told me back around, let's say August 4th, that against a top 20 Auburn team, it would be Stetson Bennett throwing to a receiver for Georgia, Ladd McConkey, who didn't have any Power 5 offers before Georgia offered him, and your leading tackler would be a walk-on safety. And I'd be looking at all those Georgia players that you have who should be ahead of those guys. And I'd be like, there's no way Georgia wins that game.
And I think most people probably would agree with you, but this is one reason that practice at Georgia is so crucial, right? When you're thinking of Stetson Bennett to Ladd McConkey, it's not like that just started in the last 2 weeks. What do you think they were doing last year in practice at the end of the year when McConkey's learning how to play the position? Oh, he's got an experienced quarterback there set to throw to him who's been a starter in the year and then kind of gets benched, and that's where we're at. But I think the exciting thing for Georgia is some of those positions that seemed weaker at the beginning, and maybe they still are in terms of depth, wide receiver, especially with the health there. And then in the secondary, you're seeing some guys really emerge in those positions and show a lot of growth in the last 6 weeks. Particularly Keely Ringo is doing a great job in individual coverage and not drawing penalty flags. And it took a perfect pass from Bo Nix to beat him on one of only 2 or 3 times he's been beaten this season. So Keely Ringo, I think, is really becoming a star player for the Bulldogs. You see McConkey doing the same thing on the other side. I'll be curious to see, you mentioned Dan Jackson, if he becomes the starter because of the injuries back there. I have to think that some opponent is going to say, okay, let's try to stretch him vertically. Let's try to attack at him because no team has done that yet. And he can hold his own, I think. But, in the spring game, we saw George do the same thing when he was out there.
Yeah, I thought as coach, I thought it was very impressive that Broderick Jones was called on. It wasn't he had to come in when Jamari Sawyer went down. He came in. I thought between Broderick Jones and Darnell Washington, those two came in. It didn't look like one was inexperienced and one was coming back from injury. And again, this is just the casual observer. I don't have the eye that you do. But I was very impressed with how these guys were actually out there blocking. They looked – I don't say Georgia didn't miss a beat because that's not true, but they looked good. Give me your thoughts on Darnell Washington and Broderick Jones coming in and how they fared.
Yeah, first of all, Broderick, that's a pretty massive thing to come in at left tackle on national television and not get exposed. He never had any, really bad plays. He didn't perform right at the point of attack with the physicality, I use that word for Dayne, that you would think that he probably would. But more than anything, he was making sure he didn't, just make a mental error. So his confidence has to be built up with that game, and maybe he can get a little bit more, use his physical ability to get more dominant at the line of scrimmage, and that we'll probably see more of that. But I thought overall it was a good performance by him. And then Washington just getting his feet under him, by that I mean just getting confidence in his foot. When you got that much body to carry around and you got to put all that weight on your foot, that's a lot of pressure on you. And so he looked a lot more fluid this week than he did last week. He was kind of had a little gait to him last week, and I think he's not favoring it like he was. And, the pass was a little bit behind him, but, made a good catch. And I could see us using some of that 13 personnel. In the pros, they do that a lot where they put 3 tight ends in and then let them kind of JoJo around where one guy will be wide and one guy will line up the wing and another guy tight end. I could see that with our receiver situation, coming forward with Bowers being the wide guy and then maybe Fitzpatrick on the line and using Washington in motion, and they're really doing a good job of protecting the backside and doing things like he does. So two really good guys to come in that haven't played much all year and do a good job. One because he's hurt, another because he's second team. But I'm happy with the way our line really. I mean, you look at what our line's done ever since the Clemson game. This really has improved dramatically. I think the most improvement of any part. We have very few sacks. We have very few lost yardage plays, and really, what was unreal playing in a stadium like that. Not any motion penalties or offside penalties. It's very good.
I didn't think about that. You're right.
Very good indication of the discipline that Todd Monken has instilled in this team, and Coach Luke and the guys worked on it. I tell you, they use that noise in the indoor building when they practice indoors, and it's just overwhelming how loud it is. And I think it gets a point where Kirby just head hurts, so he cuts it off. It's so loud. So it's really a good way to practice, though. I mean, you get an idea of what the noise is like. And we talked about it, True, on the show last week. First quarter, if Auburn gets some juice, get out there and get the crowd in the game, it's going to help them. And that's exactly what happened. We only had 2 possessions in the first quarter, and then we scored 17 points in the second, which really turned the game around. But, that's what happens when you're on the road. You never know. And that's what's going to happen to Kentucky this week. This football team has done a good job all year, but they played 5 games in the friendly confines of Kroger Field. 5 out of 6. They played 1 game on the road and kind of peed down their leg when they played in South Carolina. I mean, a lot of turnovers, a lot of mistakes, and I guarantee they're going to come in a really rowdy-looking group here now. You talk about somebody that's going to be ready Saturday. If we were ready at 12 o'clock for that Arkansas Razorback team, we're going to be up to the max for this Kentucky team at 3:30. It'll be rocking and rolling there in Sanford Stadium.
Yeah, I go back to actually the students are ready at 10:30 for that 12 o'clock kickoff against Arkansas. The recruits that were in town, there are a lot of them, and it's I said this in my 3-2-1 column last week. When you find out when some of these names pop, when in the recruiting world, when these guys make decisions, and some of them wind up coming to Georgia, and you start tracing it back, you're going to see a lot of those kids were at that Arkansas game. That game impressed them. They're going to have a loaded house this coming Saturday. A lot of top talents coming to town to watch this 3:30 game with ESPN's Game Day, on campus again. Second time in 3 weeks, third time this season they've been on site for a Georgia game. That tells you things are changing up. Georgia's number 1 right now in the nation. Hadn't been there in the AP poll since 83. Just a different feel about this year, a different feel about this team. But I was thinking about the offensive line and kind of the difference. I guess the reason it feels different to me, Dayne, is we always talk about, for the longest time, there's always defense wins championships, and then everyone started refiguring that when LSU had its run and Alabama had its success, with these high-powered quarterbacks and high-powered wide receivers. But all of a sudden, to me, that it does feel like defense wins championships. Yeah, Georgia's scoring about 40 points a game, but you bring that Auburn team into the game that's averaging 246 yards a game or 230, something well over 200 yards rushing. That rushing team, and they got stonewalled, absolutely stonewalled.
I think that's ridiculous, though, because Auburn hasn't rushed the ball at all against anybody any good. So
yeah, nobody good, but it's still, Coach. That defensive front it's why to me this whole year feel different.
Our defensive front's really good. I mean, awesome, but Auburn's stats, we talked about last week. I mean, Auburn is not a very good football team right now. They're struggling. They got no receivers except Robinson. They got very limited secondary. It's a team that you got to beat, but at the same time, they're going to have a hard time winning. They'll probably beat South Carolina, but I don't know who else they're going to beat in the rest of the year. What do you guys think? They got to play Ole Miss. They got to play Mississippi State. They got to play Alabama. They got to play this week against a very good Arkansas team. If you look at Auburn and you look at here's the other thing that just got my attention was that we shut down about as bad as you can shut down Arkansas. I mean, they had their legs between their legs. their heads between their legs when they left. And I'm just going to tell you, I watched them against Ole Miss. They almost had 700 yards and 51 points. And they got 200 yards and 0 points against us, and about 100 of them was against the rest of our third team group in the fourth quarter. So, but realistically, what time is it? 12:20 today.
Yeah.
We really haven't played anybody. Who have we played? That's the thing that all of us got to realize. We're dominant, but we play teams that are ranked. But I don't know. They aren't ranked after we play them. They don't end up. Auburn's not going to be in the top 20. Arkansas might be in the top 20. Clemson's still trying to get in the top 20. So this Kentucky team's ranked in the top 10, but we're going to do the same thing to them. We're going to get after them, but it's nobody's fault. It's a really good schedule we got.
They ain't played nobody, Dane.
It's a great schedule, and Coach is right. Chattanooga beat Kentucky for 3.5 quarters, and if a ball doesn't bounce a weird way, maybe Kentucky has one loss to Chattanooga and is undefeated otherwise. But, that's the way the schedule breaks for Georgia. And it's also massively helpful that after this game, both Georgia and Kentucky get the bye week, because these are two teams that are quite beat up. And the injuries that we talk about are the ones that prevent people from playing. Well, the ones that are playing have injuries too. And those are things that they're playing through, and that kind of tells you the pain tolerance of the team. Georgia needs a bye week, but there's a big matchup before them.
Yeah, one thing I also would contribute here that I copied off Radi during that watch-along show. He listed all the guys that we had that are injured, and when you look at our 2D, our top 44, we got like 14 or 15 guys that are missing games out of our top 44. That's a real tribute to our team and our coaches, and it's the program itself. And when I say we haven't played anybody, I don't mean we've dominated, because we're just better than these other teams. There's no question about it. That's not their fault. I'm great. I'm happy about our team being better, but I don't know when we're going to play anybody even close to us. Maybe Florida. I don't know. Kentucky. Who knows? When you're playing an undefeated team and you're Las Vegas got you 24-point favorite, that pretty much shows you what everybody thinks about who's what. But, as Herbie talked about, this is a good team. They can run the ball. They're a better passing team than they were. Their defense is solid, but, they're going to be without two of their top defensive linemen. And that doesn't speak real good when you're coming into Sanford Stadium. So I'm not just discounting Kentucky. We got to go beat them, but at the same time, it's a team we should beat.
I would not be surprised if Georgia, much like it did against Arkansas, goes out and just runs straight at Kentucky and says, you stop our running backs, you stop our offensive line, and we're fine winning that way. And I think Georgia's got a shot to rush for a lot of yards in this game.
You watch the Missouri stats. Look, Missouri, a team that's fighting for its life out there, went up and down the field against Kentucky. Florida had the ball the whole game, but had 15 penalties and, really dominant, twice as many offensive yards as they had, and the first downs, everything. But in the end, had a field goal block. So, this Kentucky team, we talked about it on our Around the League show. We call them the Kentucky Wildcats. They got 9 lives, and they're down to their 8th or 9th one now. I think they're going to, hopefully, it's one of those games that I'm real cautious about, just because, things can't be that great. But at the same time, based on paper, we should be okay against these guys.
Well, Kirby was very complimentary of Kentucky's offensive line, he said there's no question this is the best offensive line that they have seen, that Georgia's seen this year. He said, look, they got all those guys that came back, they got transfers, and this should be a true test. And if Auburn wasn't a true test of Georgia being able to stop the run, I think the Arkansas one was pretty good test, and Georgia shut them down and held them scoreless. But this week will be very interesting when you have a very solid offensive line, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Jalen Carter, Devontae White, Jordan Davis, Trayvon Walker, those guys do that. Coach, how do you prepare for a group like this?
This is probably the best team we're playing. I mean, except for Clemson's defense, this is probably the best team we've played to this point because of their flexibility on offense. Good running back. They got Wandale Robinson transferred in from Nebraska. Really good receiver, kind of like Van that played for South Carolina that did a pretty good job against us. And Rodriguez is a really good back. The quarterback, Levi, has done a good job of coming in for a transfer from Penn State, and he's giving them a little juice. They got a new coordinator on offense. So they'll definitely test us. There's no question.
I'll give a shout out to our friends here at Classic City Eats. I'm in the over by the game room. The golf simulators in the back corner there. I've got some great food out here. I'll turn that around. Y'all can see what I'll be teasing my coworkers here with. That's the chicken tender plates. And then on the other side, we got those wings there. That's their citrus pepper wings, Coach. I know you like the citrus pepper, so we got those as well. And, of course, all the fun decorations and such, the witches going on there. But the reason I bring them up, because, I always talk about Athens Ford, but Athens Ford is actually going to sponsor the fall festival that's being held here at Classic City Eats. On October 23rd, next Saturday, Classic City Eats is going to be hosting their fall festival here at the restaurant, and it's being sponsored by Athens Ford with games and prizes for the kids all afternoon, followed by a Ford truck or treat in the parking lot at dark. So if you're trying to figure out what you want to do, where you want to go, want to come to a fun event next Saturday, the bye week, come out to Classic City Eats with and they have tons of other decorations in the place. It's all kind of fun, spooky stuff. But there will be a Athens Ford truck or treat out here at Classic City Eats. So if you get a chance, check them out. And a big shout out to Athens Ford for also sponsoring the lights that are coming to the Botanical Gardens of Georgia. They're sponsoring that. That's going to be fantastic. My wife was over there walking the trails the other day. She was talking about all the different lights they're putting in, how they're decorating all the trees. And again, Athens Ford takes care of the community that it's in, even out here in Watkinsville. So shout out to Athens Ford for being a great sponsor of our show. And if you need a new vehicle or pre-owned vehicles, swing by, grab one. Get a lifetime powertrain warranty on the vehicles out there. They have 1.9% financing for 60 months for qualified buyers on most of their brand new vehicles. So hit them up when you get a chance. And Dayne, if you would bring up the Dead Soxy website if you get a chance, because I want to mention that the fact that Georgia's 6-0, and I was joking when they became a sponsor of the show. I said, look, Dead Soxy, here are your new lucky socks. So they have all those red and black socks, and they look so sharp. They have the no-shows that I like to wear when I go do all my walking. And then they have the striped ones, the dotted ones, all the fantastic black and white colors on their alumni. I was trying to remember the alumni packages. So they make socks for Georgia fans. They make socks for LSU fans. There's 2 Ole Miss grads, They make socks for just about every fan base out there. They got some new styles coming that we'll talk about later on. But when you get a chance, check out Dead Soxy. They are huge, huge sponsors of our show, and they make great stuff. What I like is the fact that they have the true state technology. They actually invented and patented a sock technology to keep your socks up. So for somebody who has big calves, big fat calves, the sliding down socks was a pain. These don't slide down on me. And since they've become a sponsor, Georgia's been blowing everybody out. I made a joke that they would come get your new lucky socks. But damn if they're not lucky. So when you get a chance, check out our friends at Dead Soxy. Use promo code UGASports to get a huge discount on the red and black socks, the Georgia collection out of Dead Soxy.
Hey, Rottie, do me a favor and describe what is over your left shoulder for our audio-only audience. Describe what that looks like over your shoulder.
Over my left shoulder, we've got the Pirates of Penzance there. It's a bunch of skeletons with the headscarves on. They kind of look like a bunch of dead pirates.
They kind of look like Ed Ogeron's head coaching career to me.
Oh. Yeah, and they all have plates here from Classic City Eats. It's basically a table full of skeletons that are sitting there as if they're having a meal or had their last meal. And if you're going to have the last meal, hell, might as well eat it here at Classic City Eats. And for folks that can't see, there's witches here, there's cobwebs, there's tombstones, a bunch of high-quality fun stuff. So get a chance to check it out.
We'll talk about it on Around the League this week, but LSU Now they were already without Derek Stingley, but now being out without Keishon Butte, who I think is the best receiver in the country, it's a bad world of hurt for the Tigers. I don't know if they're going to get bowl eligible at this rate.
Yeah, they got a tough road to hoe. Got the Gators coming in this week, but they certainly had a hard time with Kentucky. That's for sure. Just finally got a little running game going, but couldn't protect Johnson, and they couldn't get off the field on defense. I mean, just a very poor performance by LSU, and a great win for Kentucky with when everybody was counting on them to, including myself, to maybe have a bit of a letdown. But boy, they just played really well.
Because I know we always focus on Georgia, but to me, one of the biggest storylines coming out of this past week was not Georgia going down and stomping Auburn. At the games I was worried about when we started to watch along, I said I'm just nervous about this game because I'm always nervous about playing Auburn, even though there shouldn't be. But it's just you never know what's going to happen when you go to a someone else's stadium, which is exactly what happened when Alabama went to Texas A&M. They went into an unranked Texas A&M stadium. That place was loud as hell, and Alabama, the number one team in the nation, leaves with a loss. First loss to a unranked team in 100 tries, something like that. What does that tell? What did you see in that Alabama? Because Georgia and Alabama are going to face each other at some point. I still think that they're going to win the West, and Georgia will face them in the SEC championship game, if not somewhere in the playoffs. Give me your thoughts on Alabama this year.
There's a classic case of an ex-coach going against his mentor. Not only Coach Jimbo Fisher, but James Coley, who knows how to go against that Kirby Smart defense. They really attacked them. They used their formations. They used their quick counts to keep them from getting lined up. They did a really good job of attacking their safeties and just an unbelievable game plan. And Zach Calzada had an out-of-body experience. This kid came out there, and I'm so happy. I'm so happy for him that he played. That we've been hearing about his good arm and all, but his inconsistency, but a lot of pressure on him. But here's a team that only scored 10 points against Colorado, among the worst teams in the country, and they go out there and go up and down the field against Alabama. And based on my first couple comments, just the way they knew what Alabama was going to be in, they attacked it. They're different areas that really their defense is not good about. And then they played great red zone defense. They kept them to field goals. And a lot of that was Alabama's philosophy. I mean, they're at the end of the game, they're down 6 points and got the ball on the 3-yard line and throw 3 consecutive passes. When they got a running back who can hammer and tong you like Robinson, I would at least let him run it once. And, it just turned out to be a tremendous win. I thought Alabama had turned the tables and had the game, but then here comes the Aggies back with a great drive, and then they did the same thing. They got them in man coverage and attacked their safety. They went after battle a lot like Bo Nix went after Rainey, but I think when you get man coverage and you got good corners and you got good, you got to pick a guy to go against, and it's not that the guy is not that good, but it's just, you pick your poison there about where you want to go. And I don't know, pick your poison, but you pick what you think's the best percentage throw for you.
Yeah.
So the other thing that was really dynamic about it was A&M had 2 losses. Everybody had put them away for dead. They lost to Mississippi State on the last play of the game, kind of speak, and they lost at home to, in a neutral site to a very good Arkansas team. But, when you lose your quarterback and you're fighting to get identity, they really showed some good coaching. I thought it was just a tremendous game plan. And as a former coach, I really watched the intricacies of why people do things and how they go about it. And I thought it was not only a good game plan, it was a brilliant tactical ploy, the way they pulled their kids together, their formations. They put their good tight end, instead of lining him up inside on the slot, sometimes they put him outside, and then when they would release, then they'd bring him back inside to cross like that and confuse the safety. Just little things like that just you and Dayne pick up all the time, so I'm not going to go over it, but it was just a lot of little subtle things that were just a fantastic game plan. and the players did a good job of taking care of it, and the fans. I mean, good Lord, that was just an unbelievable atmosphere. And but the one common denominator that you take into account for every loss that this team ever has at Alabama is brilliant quarterback play. Johnny Manziel. You just go down to,
Joe Burrow,
Watson, Burrow,
Stephen Garcia,
Lawrence, whoever it might be. Quarterbacks have those games that you take into they take to the rest home with them. Hey, one day back in 2021, I lit up Alabama, and that's what you got to have. You got to have a guy that can make the third down throws, keep the team on the field, and it was just a tremendous win. I mean, and it's pretty obvious Alabama is not. We've talked about it after the Florida game. Their defense has big issues, really big. They can't rush the passer. They can't play the ball in the air. They're really bad tackling in space. And offensively, they're struggling to get big plays out of their wide receivers. You just don't see guys running down the field on chunk plays. So they're having to drive the ball. But I know I'm talking a lot, but I guarantee you, I mean, right now, things look good for us if we'll just keep improving and get some of our healthy guys back, because this Alabama defense is a really one that's something that you don't really see very often from them. I thought it was going to be improved this year, but I was wrong on that.
I don't always pick up on the subtle things, Coach, but the thing I did pick up on is that when Alabama blocks that punt and scores a touchdown, typically that's kind of the beginning of the end or the beginning of the comeback. When A&M comes back and then runs the kickoff back for a touchdown, complete game changer in terms of momentum and atmosphere. So special teams, once again.
But seriously, that was as close to looking like a guy got shot out of Cape Canaveral as I've ever seen a guy run that kickoff back. Unbelievable. I mean, he runs like a 10-100 meter anyhow. I mean, and that's another thing that excites me, because I think we're going to have Arian Smith back hopefully this week, and he's got that kind of speed too. But, I mean, when you hit that gash like that, and it was over, we talked about it, I think, on a text, but Alabama's coming back now. They got an easy score on a block kick, and you just got they should fold. I mean, they've already lost twice. They should fold. And unfortunately for Alabama, the kicking game let them down, really let them down.
Well, again, for folks that are wonder why we speak so much about Alabama, again, this is a team that Georgia's going to face. And I think Coach nailed it, is the little things, the formations, the special teams. You looked at this game and you saw, I'm sure Kirby Smart's making notes, Dan Lanning's making notes, Todd Monken's making notes, going, okay, we're going to have to face these guys at some point. What do they do? That game film is going to be dissected 800 ways from Sunday. So I know we got some questions, Dan. I'll let you bring those up. But first, I want to mention our friends over.
Let me tell you this. It's already been dissected. When the team was riding back on the bus, they were watching the Alabama game on the big screen on the bus. So, it wasn't like these. They were right all over it. That's for sure.
Yeah, so even the players have dissected it. If you need to dissect your plans for dinner or lunch today, be sure to check out our friends at Your Pie. 50, 60, 70 locations all over the Southeast, all over the country. You need to check out Your Pie. And it's Tuesday, so be sure to use the Your Pie app to order your food. Download the Your Pie app. Go in, order your sandwiches, order your salads, order your gelato, order your giant 14-inch pizza, order your custom pizzas, order your custom pastas, and do it on the app and get double points. You get rewarded the more you use the app, and you get rewarded especially on Tuesdays, because it's double the points on Tuesday. So you definitely want to use that today. Order your food. Have a fun dinner tonight. Everybody gets their own pizza exactly the way they want it, with their own crust, with their own sauce, their own cheese, as many toppings as they want. Check out our friends at Your Pie. They do a great job making people happy. They make us happy because they sponsor our show and our website, and we appreciate that a whole lot. And if you're not going to be in the stadium this Saturday at 3:30, if you're not here at Classic City Eats, be sure to swing by our friends at Academia Brewing Company. Watch the game there. Watch on their giant screen. Watch it on all the other TVs they have up all over the place. Watch in their lounge where they have all these couches. It's really comfortable to sit. grab the flights of beer, have 4 different types of beer there, and then get another flight and have 4 more. Then get a third flight, have 4 more. Get an Uber. But they have so many different beers that are try, so many fantastic beers, so many collaboration beers they do. You don't want to miss it. You don't want to. I mean, you need to go by frequently because stuff keeps changing. And of course, you can take home a bunch of the bottles, a bunch of the cans home with you, so that if you can't be in town next week, if you need some good stuff for the bye week, you'll have a ton of great beer that you can take home with you. Right now, the weather's fantastic. They have the outside beer garden. They have tons of Oktoberfest beers out there. They have Trivia Tuesdays at Academia Brewing Company. Live music on Thursday. Then on the Saturday and Sunday, they have the beer and biscuit brunch. You got to check out our friends at Academia Brewing Company. They're huge dog fans. The guy that put the whole thing together is a Georgia graduate. Hey, support the people who support your school. So reach out to Academia Brewing Company.
Let's get into some questions from the Dogmen at UGASports.com. Coach, this one is from Blocker57, and it's in reference to the James Cook catch that was not reviewed, but then it was ruled incomplete. Blocker wants to know, what's the protocol for in-game reviews from a coaching perspective? Is there a coach in the box who's tasked with watching plays and kind of signaling, hey, we should review this or challenge this?
Yeah, there's somebody, I don't know in particular who it is for us, but, if it's close like that, we'll challenge it. But, from a standpoint of the procedure, the guy in the press box that's working for the, for the SEC will buzz down and say, let's review it. I thought they should have reviewed it. But at that point in the game, I mean, I think we were just, when was it? When did it happen?
It was third quarter, I think.
Third quarter.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely reviewable, I think.
Rottie, I'm going to get this next question for you. So if you want to put yourself back on camera,
I'm back on screen. Yep.
It's for recruiting. This is, let me see who this is from. This is from ZXBY140. Please tell the story of Lad McConkey's recruitment.
Oh, that's why we kind of asked Kirby about it, and he said that, look, he went in and sat down with that kid. The kid didn't have any Power 5 offers, but Kirby saw just the speed and the athleticism. And Coach can talk about this more than I can, but I don't know if folks have really realized how much Kirby goes and gets athletes. Jalen Carter, like his coach always points out, former tight end. When you saw Amarius Mims show up, you didn't know if he's going to be a good offensive tackle, but you could just tell he's an athlete. Jordan Davis, 3-star in some places, 4-star with us. A lot of places that he's too big, or he's carries too much bad weight. They saw an athlete. They saw an athlete at Lad McConkey. They saw an absolute baller. When you go back and look at a lot of the other guys he gets, I think it seems to me there's always been the idea, get the best offensive guard or get the best offensive tackle. Georgia goes out and gets the best lineman and then figures out where to put him. So Lad McConkey, absolute athlete. Dan Jackson, absolute athlete. Guys like that who just have more twitch than the next guy, more speed than the next guy, more strength than the next guy, more dynamic playmaking ability. And you've seen that Lad McConkey. That he had that Dominic Blaylock play from last year or 2 years ago when they absolutely torched Auburn at Auburn, right down the gap, or right down the center of the field. Lad McConkey ran the same thing, same way, and it's a beautiful thing to see. And I give shout out to Kirby Smart because we weren't talking about we mentioned Lad McConkey in the spring, but the fact that I put him in my 3-2-1 saying, guys, you don't understand how much this kid's going to play and how much Brock Bowers is going to play in this first game. And people are like, what the hell are you talking about? Sure enough, he balled out because that was happening in fall camp. So, Coach, real quick, it seems to is it Kirby's philosophy? It's just best athletes, or am I making too much out of it?
Well, they do a good job of. First of all, you got coaches that have the area that they go to all the high schools, they break it down, and then you got position, and you got all these assistant recruiting people watching tape all the time. But the best thing you can do is watch a guy live, either in your camp or go watch him play a game, or go, in the case of McConkey, then we'll watch him play basketball, and he saw his change of direction, explosiveness, and his ability to run the court, quickness-wise. And you're always looking for that in an athlete. You just can't. There's no substitute for speed. This game today is all speed-related. Size certainly helps, but if you can't run, you can't play in SEC at any position. So I think it's just a question of Kirby doing like anybody, you do your homework. But when you get a guy that's maybe not as highly recruited and in this star type deal, and then he does things like that, then people try to make a deal out of it. Hey, boy, you really, that was just a way to pick one out. But they're not interested in any kind of plaudits for picking a guy out. They just do a good job of. Very seldom do we miss on a guy here. That's one thing I always talk to a coach. I said, hey, you're not going to sign everybody, but don't bring me in a turd. I don't want a guy that can't play dead in the Western movie. I mean, you got to have some guys that
it's a 4-year mistake, Coach.
Very good evaluators, and you got to make a decision on not where he is now, but where he's going to be 2-3 years down the road, and can he beat Alabama? Can he beat Florida? That's the way you base your recruiting. If he can't, then you don't take him.
Pro Football Focus is Ladd McConkey graded as the second best receiver in the nation so far this year, which is pretty crazy. Now, that's a small sample size, so I do want to mention that.
Yeah, one thing that happens when you catch a 70-yard bomb and a 50-yard bomb in the same game, that really helps your damn coverage as far as not many guys get that. And I'm not taking away from Ladd, but, one of the things he does that to our defense. He gets behind you. And I think sometimes you're thinking to yourself, this guy right here, I'm going to jack him up. I'm going to play him tight. And then all of a sudden he's running by you. And, he just doesn't have an overwhelming presence physically. But I guarantee you that gets their attention. That tape right there, every defensive back that plays us is going to give him a lot more room now because they realize he can run a double move. He can explode off the line. He can catch the ball underneath. He can run after the catch. You look at the Vanderbilt tape, too. That's some really good stuff for him, too, running the reverse. We had a good guy who played for us now who's the special teams guy for the Kansas City Chiefs. Andy Hill played for me at Missouri, and we call him Tinkerbell. I mean, he was just a little small guy. But, boy, I tell you what, he was physical, and he could run deep, and people just couldn't believe it. We ran an 80-yard bomb on the first play of the game against Illinois, and that corner still trying to find where Andy was. I mean, stuff like that happens to me. But I'm happy for Ladd because he wanted to play for Georgia, and he had high goals, and he didn't listen to anybody except Kirby Smart. If Kirby believes in you, that's good enough.
Yep. Rottie, I was talking about the pass catchers stepping up. There was a series, it was in the second quarter. Darnell Washington catches the ball across the middle where he sneaks behind the inside linebacker. Ball's just slightly behind him, but he adjusts beautifully, makes a big catch. McConkey then hits the kind of stutter. It wasn't a full double move, but it completely shook the Auburn defender. Goes down, catches that pass, and then A.D. Mitchell with Coach, you said it was a professional route in the end zone. It was beautiful.
Yeah, that in and out move by Mitchell was just very typical of the way Cortez Hankin coaches them, and Monken puts those plays in. I mean, that's a pro goal line move. I mean, people run the fade stop and the back shoulder and all that, but not a lot of people come inside and give you that double move inside and then plant and go back out. A lot of times you do that with a slot, but a wide receiver, most times when you're playing a guy on the goal line, you're going to be playing inside technique and forcing him out and try to widen him out, into the boundary and play the boundary and the ball and force him out. But if you're inside, it's hard to get inside a guy. And he got inside of him very quickly, and then that guy's struggling. He thinks he's going to run a crossing route, and then he takes a step to cover the crossing route, and he plants back to the outside, and then Stetson just hit him right on the numbers. It was brilliant. I mean, it just makes my mouth water to watch that technique. I love it because, defensive back coaches said, hey, we're lined up inside. You're not going to go inside us. And then, hey, why'd you let him inside? I mean, that's the way it goes.
Speaking of wide receivers, question from Lake Norman Dog. When does Coach Donnan expect to see George Pickens back?
One of the things that we found out about on our watch-along show that was George Pickens made the trip last week, and the reason he did was his surgeon, Dr. James Andrews, is a team doctor for Alabama and Auburn, and a very world-renowned specialist. And Kirby and Ron Corson, our athletic trainer, felt like it'd be a good chance for him to get the once-over on him. And talked to him a little bit how he felt like he's progressing. And, of course, we don't know exactly what Dr. Andrews said, but I think the fact that he's at that point that they would take him down there to look at him, it's got to make me feel like you want the master's approval here. Now, hey, what can you do from here on in? And he's had everything go for him pretty good. He's out there running, and he certainly acts like he wants to play. I mean, we got another week here off, and then we play Florida. I don't know. I can't say, but, say a little prayer every night that hope he plays against Florida, because I promise you that makes a lot of difference in our teams. If he's just lined up out there, I mean, if he could just line up there and just be a decoy and then not do anything, it'd be unreal. But I'd say he's definitely come a long way for sure. And for me to project what's going to happen would be, fool's goal at this point. But just the fact they took him down there to let Dr. Andrews look at him, got to feel like he's worth looking at. And they wouldn't take him down there if they didn't want the guy to check him out. I mean.
Question from Obi-Wan: how, as a staff, do you avoid letdowns when your team is coming off 5 or 6 consecutive very impressive performances?
That's the one thing that I feel like we haven't had many letdowns here since Kirby's been. We had the bad game against South Carolina, but that wasn't a letdown. It was just a case of ineffectiveness as far as, turnovers, and our defense played really good. They didn't get the red zone. But as far as what we do, our practices, Kirby's got a really good pulse. I heard him yesterday in a press conference talking about we played 2 real physical games where our team played a little bit longer than they did in the runaway games like they did against South Carolina and Vanderbilt and UAB. And so yesterday they cut back on practice a little bit just to let the kids get their legs under them. And but the thing we do is we practice hard against each other. And, I mean, it's self-survival out there. If you're going against Carter and Davis and all those guys, and DBs are going against our wide receivers, I mean, we do a lot of good on good, and it makes you better. But if you're not out there doing your best and you got a GPS on, let me just tell you, just like a guy that's got a bad heart, he's got a heart monitor, and if something's going wrong, the doctor's going to look at it. And I guarantee you, if your GPS ain't going 100 miles an hour, Herbie's going to be on your ass in a New York minute. So you better be ready out there to go. And we got a guy monitoring that over there. I mean, a guy's over there in the end zone, and he's got all those guys' GPS, and coaches can't read the GPS because they're doing all that, but that guy send a message out there, hey, such and so, he's not going. And boy, I tell you, when you get that kind of message that your GPS isn't going like it needs to be,
bing, bing, bing.
Those players don't need that. And we don't ever get that much because they know, and you watch Kirby in these press conferences and everything, he talks about what he believes in, and that's what the players believe in. Hey, we're going to get better in practice. I mean, it's hard to understand that, but I would say this: our team has made dramatic improvement in the passing game on the pass defense. We're around the ball. I mean, we're close to knocking the ball down. We're not getting many turnovers, but we're getting close. We got a great tip drill by Nakobe Dean, and I tell you, I watch that Filmed On Live that you do, and it's a tremendous thing you and Brent put together, and showed Nakobe Dean just getting up. The way he got up, he's on the sideline. He does a little acrobatic get up. That's one thing I always look at as an athlete or non-athlete. You go watch a kid, and when he's on the ground, first of all, if he's on the ground a lot, he can't play. But if he's on the ground and then he has to put his hand down to get up, and he can't get up without using somebody to help him, or if a guy can just jump up off the ground. Then that's an athletic type guy. If he has to use the ground to get up, hey, he ain't coming to play for me.
I mean, he just sprung up from his back to his feet, and that's with like all the pads. And I'm thinking, most people can't do anything close to that with nothing on, but with shoulder pads, crazy.
That was impressive.
Yeah. Go ahead, Coach.
I mean, it's impressive. I mean, this.
Yeah. When I look back at guys like Malik Herring doing back handsprings, and Miko Hardman and Akeel Crumpton and Isaiah McKenzie, guys who are just lightning fast and great athletes. That's you see it and stuff like that. No Sean Marino bouncing up off the ground, running back to the official to hand him the ball, then running back to the huddle to get the ball again. there's just something special about those pure athletes that you just they're fun to watch. So
Yeah, you show me a guy to do a backflip, I'll show you guys probably even getting drafted.
or like you say, those offensive linemen that are dunking balls. And I think Georgia has 3, maybe 4. Got Dylan Fairchild, Alden Blasky, Webb.
My wrestlers?
Yeah, you got a bunch of wrestlers, state champs. Give me a bunch of wrestling guys. You know, guys that play great basketball players, guys that are great wrestlers, guys that are great in track. You know, you have a world-class sprinter in Arian Smith. Getting him back would be big. So it's a fun group to watch.
Question from KCKD: is there any position group for Kentucky that is even or better than Georgia?
I'd say their offensive line, just on experience, is the fact that they've got some guys that are comparable to us. So, you know, you got a really stalwart guy in that one player, and then they picked up a good transfer. Rottie mentioned LSU left tackle's playing there, and he's playing good for him. You know, I couldn't figure that one out, but must have got a better deal or something. I don't know what it was, but you know, when you get a left tackle from a team like LSU, that really helps you. But I'd say their offensive line is comparable to ours, and you know, Rodriguez is a good back. I mean, Wandale Robinson, a good receiver, but the group as a whole, I don't know any of them that have as many guys in their rooms as we have in ours. But I'm sure that Brent Rollins will probably tell us a little bit more about that because he studies all the grades. But
well, we actually do a series on that, and I'm sure KCKD that this person's been a member of our site for the last 25 years. Check out when we do the grade comparison. We'll have all the Kentucky players' grades versus the Georgia player grades. It's always great to see, and it's funny how much it plays out when you look at Jordan Davis is grading out at 85, and this center for this team is grading out at 62, and then all of a sudden you just see him absolutely own that guy. You can't hide this stuff, and it's but check that out because it'll be interesting to see. But I'm with you, Coach. I think that offensive line is probably the only part that's comparable.
Yeah, here's the thing about it, too. I mean, it's not the center's fault that he can't block Jordan Davis. It's not anybody's fault. I mean, you just got to – I mean, it's just a tough deal to go against a guy like that, particularly the guy can run like that. And the one thing I would say about our defense that really is kind of overwhelming is the way they complement each other as far as their skill set in a scheme. I mean, you have a scheme where you have a 3 down or 4 down, whatever it might be, but everybody knows their role and everybody plays their technique. And there's a time where you're going to shine based on the defensive call, and there's a time where you're just going to have to take on a block, or you're going to have to play assignment football, and you're going to be away from the ball because you're watching the reverse or you're watching the cutback. But you don't see many busted defensive plays by our defense. They're where they're supposed to be. And you're going to get blocked once in a while, but we don't see a lot of gashes where we have somebody's not in the right gap or somebody's not in the right position. And to me, excellent sign of coaching, but also unselfishness on the players' part, and the fact that they're not trying to be a prima donna and trying to make plays that aren't there. I mean, they know if they do what they're supposed to, there's plenty of praise to go around, and when they do make a play, they enjoy it too. I like the way Carter was laying down there after that one and did that little thing on the ground. And that was, he was just, because Bo Nix was so
salty,
unstoppable the week before, all those plays he made with his feet, and he's very good with it. But I thought we did a great job of harassing him the whole game. And Bo Nix now 0 for 3 against Georgia as far as even being in the ball game. I mean, they were close there at halftime, 17-3. But let me just tell you, we did it. We have done a really good job of playing team defense, and that's what the trademark of Van Lanning's defense under Kirby Smart. They just where they're supposed to be, and the same thing I was talking about Nick and Alabama. You better have a hot quarterback. And you better have a guy that can make some of those plays like Auburn did, the catch on the boundary by Demetrius Robinson, or the catch several times on 3rd down where he just ripped it in there on the out route. You
That
got
tied in a couple times too.
yeah, you got to make those kind of plays against a really good defense because you get 3 more plays if you make a first down, or you get a. But we don't give up many big plays. That's what I really like, and we definitely have a lot of fun knocking people around. There's no question they got a lot of pride in it.
For Kentucky, not the whole position group, but I would say top end running back. Chris Rodriguez is the leading rusher in the conference, and it's not by a small margin. It's by about 80 yards. And so, is Kentucky's running back group as good as Georgia's?
Nobody.
No, but
he
he's a
gets
good
the
player.
ball a lot more than our guys, so he must have twice as many carries as Zeus, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean it's a lot more carries. They don't spread it around as much. So yeah, it's a sample size thing. What I'm saying is he's a good running back.
No question. He could play for us. He could play.
Question from John Adams 88. This goes to what you said earlier in the show, Coach, kind of in regard to the schedule. Would you rather get lucky and duck all the big brands with experience or play them all this year? There's more to this question. I'll read to you. And he says, I am kind of let's go to the perennial programs and knock them out all in 1 year. Clemson, check. Alabama in the SEC championship. Ohio State in the semis. Oklahoma in the national championship. So I guess the question, do you care who you play once you get to that stage?
Yeah, it's hard to really answer that because you don't know who's going to make it. I mean, Oklahoma's got a good situation ahead of them because of their schedule. Ohio State's got to still prove it. All of us do. I mean, if we lose to Kentucky, Kentucky's got a really good roadmap into the deal because they would have to lose twice for us to get in there, and we'd have to run the table. So, something that Kirby said a couple of weeks ago, I asked him who he wanted to win between Kentucky and Florida. He said, doesn't make any difference. We got to beat them both, which is right. We do. I mean, that's the way it happens.
Good point.
But I think the questioner makes a good point. You really want to be challenged during the season where your team is ready to go when you go against a really good opponent. But at the same time, I like to dominate. I mean, if you can dominate people, it's a lot easier than having those nail biters.
This is the final question from the dog vent. We may can sneak in 1 or 2 from YouTube if we get there. He would like, this is from Navy Dog 22, would like some insight onto the punt return and block team and whether or not Kentucky's vulnerable to that. He also wants to comment on last week with Georgia's punt return and block team. He said it looked like that Georgia could have had a punt block against Auburn, even though Georgia wasn't necessarily trying to do so. He wants to know, are there any live cues that coaches give players to tell them, okay, you can go for this block?
Yeah, I mean, you call a block. You have a predetermined where you're going to attack a gap, and like we did against Arkansas when we had an unblocked person based on their protection. But a lot of it is down and distance in the way the game is. You always worry about running into the kicker and giving a team 3 more plays with a personal foul call, or if it's less than 5, just running in the kicker gives it. So you look at that, and you look at your chance of returning it too. And we've had some good chances this year to bust them. And our guys do a great job of holding people up and doing things on the perimeter. As far as individual, sometimes you'll say a guy away from the block, you'll just say on the return, say, hey, if you got a chance, you can go in there and try to block it, one-on-one. And some of these guys think they can block every kick, so you got to be careful about that. It's like the wolf and Little Red Riding Hood or something. So you have to be careful. You can't block it every time. So you just got to be careful about having that kind of relationship with your players. But Coach Muschamp doing a good job with that group. Coach McGee's on the punt return back there with the guys catching it. And I think Kieris has been more of a field general back there just catching the punts than he has actually looking to take them back, because we know he can catch it. But hopefully his legs getting where he can actually take some back now.
He's going to take one back this week. I'm calling my shot now.
Good. I like that.
I'm just telling you. He's going to score. I think the defense is going to score again, too.
Here's one question from our Facebook page. Coach, you were talking about the GPS numbers for Georgia players. Rick Martin wants to know, how much weight has Rottie lost?
Rottie's got a good GPS right now. He's dropped about half 100, hasn't he?
I dropped 78 pounds.
Dang, son.
Hey, that just goes to show you. that just goes to show you something I've always say when somebody said they're going to try to lose weight. How do you try? you either lose it or you don't. I don't want to hear. I want to try. Hey, you got to be committed, and I guarantee you, I'll give my boy credit. He's worked at it. He walks hard. He watches what he eats, and he looks a lot better, and he feels a lot better. And I would encourage anybody that get a good lifestyle there, and exercise is great for you. I mean, just makes
but I'm doing it out of spite, Coach. It's all out of spite. I got a 17-year-old son who's starting to get bigger and stronger than me, so I got to get down to my fighting weight, keep him in check.
Okay,
just like you and Todd, you can't have that whippersnapper coming at you.
We'll give you credit for that. So what else we got? We about ready to come head it to the house here. Got any YouTube questions?
That was probably well.
I'm sorry we didn't get all those.
I'll give Ninja the noob. He says maybe we'll get to YouTube if we feel like it. That's totally what happened here. Here's the thing with YouTube. If you ever want to make sure you get our attention, that super chat button is the way to do that, to solicit those. We love our YouTube audience, so I don't want to poo-poo that a little bit, but we also have to support our folks at UGASports.com.
Yeah, one thing I'll say that with Dayne and Radi on the way they've done our setup and all the way they worked at it, when we first started out, we had very few people on YouTube, now over 17,000. So hopefully we'll keep adding people and tell people about our shows. And, I enjoy getting to talk about Georgia just because I'm so proud of what Kirby's done and what our players have done. You have no idea unless you know the players yourself or have a family member that knows them. We got some really good kids on this team. I mean, they really enjoy each other, and I've always said you can't win with bums, and we got some really good kids, and that makes me more excited about doing these because I want to strut their stuff for you. I want to tell you what I can that I know about them, and hopefully give you a little insight because that's the whole part that I enjoy. I don't like to get after anybody and say anything negative except on the other teams, which I enjoy doing that. But
except when Brian Harson's calling timeouts with 20 seconds to go.
Hey, that'd chap my ass. I mean, can you? And Robinson, if he'd looked for the ball, I don't know why. I don't know if he knew he was a guy, but I applaud Kirby for throwing that ball right there. The guy keeps calling those timeouts, and I mean, what is he doing? I mean,
Coach, I'm trying to remember. And again, I'm the layman. You're the Hall of Fame coach. But what is the 25-point play in football? I don't remember that one.
Well, I know he's going to say, hey, we never give up. We want to go to the last second and all that. But then the inevitable is getting ready to happen. And, we're just running our base stuff and running the clock out. And he's calling timeouts. And especially that third one when, we were close to – I mean, it's only like 30 seconds to go. And so when they went over there, I told you on that watch line, I said, Kirby getting ready to throw this ball here. I mean, hey,
you called it.
It's just it's just really something you got to do to show the guy, what are you doing here? I mean, this isn't Boise State, man. So
he better be careful and not leave some bad taste in Georgia's mouth for next year.
It would have been a really funny thing if we'd have hit the touchdown pass. I would have laughed my ankles off on that.
Well, to me, it comes down to, I know you want to fight to the last second, but when you're 24 points down and it's under a minute, let's just not get anybody hurt.
Yeah.
We've already lost 3-4 players in this game. Let's just let it play out. Hey, we'll get them next time.
And
if you're a quarterback, don't start bitching about one pass interference call who was ticky-tack when you've had your lineman tackling Jordan Davis, tackling Trayvon Walker, tackling. I mean, you want to start getting – let the fans, let the pundits, let us bitch about stuff like that. Bo, I know you're frustrated. You've had 3 games against Georgia. You've only completed 55% of your passes in 3 years. You have one touchdown and 2 interceptions in 3 years.
I have to correct you. It's not let's get him next time. Let's get him the next 3 out of 16 times. That's what.
Yeah, whatever. But baby steps. Georgia's been on the wrong side of rivalries like that, and you just got to win one. I remember when it took forever to beat Tennessee. Then you beat them once, and then you can beat them twice. Then you come back against Florida. But point being, just don't do anything stupid, and don't say anything that's going to be used against you next year. So
yeah, hey, that's just the way it is. I mean,
Yep.
All
right, we're going to leave on that. We're going to leave on that.
I'd have to say that going forward, I like the direction of our program compared to Auburn's.
I bet you do. Hey, they're the number one team in the nation, folks. Enjoy it. And we mentioned 2 weeks ago, we said, look, enjoy this team. Don't worry about the end of it. You're number one for the first time since, hell, some of you weren't even born when they were number one last time in the AP poll. But you're number one now. Show up at Sanford Stadium this Saturday, 3:30. Be loud. Hopefully they win it. How much fun it'll be going into the bye week, knowing you're the number one team in the nation. Heading down to Florida, big game in Jacksonville. Should be a lot of fun. And just enjoy the season. We're already halfway through it. It just started, and it's already halfway through. So don't let it zip by you because you're so consumed with worry and doubt. And that's coming from one of the most pessimistic, negative guys out there that you could ever find. So anyway, special shout out to our friends here at Classic City Eats. Don't forget to come by the Fall Festival on the 23rd, the bye week Saturday, the Truck or Treat sponsored by Athens Ford. This Saturday, you can always visit our friends at Academy Brewing Company. Don't forget our friends at Dead Soxy. Promo code UGA Sports to get a huge discount on all the great socks they have over there. And, of course, it's Double Points Tuesday at Europe High, so hit them up with the app. And by the way, I have a personal favor to ask. The coach mentioned we're at over 17,000 YouTube subscribers. We're trying to get to 20,000. I don't know why. I just want that goal. So if you would, hit the subscribe button on YouTube. It doesn't cost you anything. There's no fee there. But hit that subscribe button. We greatly appreciate it. And if you're listening to this on the Apple podcast app, give us a review. We only have like 200-something reviews. We've been doing this for years. Let's get a few reviews over there. We'd greatly appreciate that as well. All right. Anything else to add, Dane?
That's it. Say goodnight, Gracie.
Good night, Gracie.